Welcome to today's news briefing presented by Listos California and co-hosted by Ethnic Media Services and California Black Media. I'm Sandy Close, EMS Director. Today's briefing focuses on earthquake preparedness, drop, cover, and hold on, California. Drop, cover, and hold on, California. In recognition of the 35th anniversary of the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake, today's briefing is part of the state's efforts to raise awareness and ensure communities across California have access to life-saving resources and knowledge to stay safe before, during, and after an earthquake. And I'm committing those words, drop, cover, and hold on, to memory. We will be discussing key elements of earthquake preparedness, including the Great ShakeOut on October 17th, insights on earthquake guidance, California's first in the nation earthquake early warning system, the MyShake App, and more. Today, our speakers will provide information you can share with your communities to ensure everyone is prepared for the next earthquake. We ask our speakers to speak slowly, as I'm doing, so our interpreters in Spanish can keep pace with what you're saying. And we ask reporters to enter questions on the chat box, which we invite our speakers to monitor and respond on the chat as you feel inspired to do so. We will address questions after each speaker as time allows. We will also send a recording of today's briefing and additional materials with speaker bios and contact information to all participants later today. And now I turn the conference over to our partner and moderator for today, Regina Wilson, Executive Director of California Black Media, who will introduce our speakers. Regina.
Thanks, Danny. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, media, for also joining us. On the call today, we have several leaders who are on the front lines of California's earthquake preparedness efforts. Our first speaker, Sonya Harris, is a senior advisor at Listos California, who'll kick us off. Ms. Harris, I will go ahead and turn this over to you.
Yay! Well, thank you so much, Regina and Sandy and the entire team at both Ethnic Media Services and California Black Media to have you, as partners and to help us convene this incredible group of, humans doing work day in and day out to make sure that our communities get, as Sandy was saying, news you can use. We just know your time is so valuable and you've got a lot on your plate. So to be here today is pretty amazing. I think we have some slides that we can put up on screen for you. As many of you know, and you've been with us before, Listos California is California's sort of designated emergency preparedness effort to really help those that are often left behind, understand how they can keep their families safer. We move to the next slide. We've got a really robust set of sort of bits of information, tips and some exciting new content that we want to make sure that you're aware of, as we head into some of the activities that our team will talk about. Super excited to introduce in just a moment Amy Palmer, who will kind of kick us off with some of the landscape of earthquakes here in California. Our colleague Jose, who will be able to really dig deeper on some of the activities that are happening around the Great ShakeOut. So you will hear more about that. And then I'll close us out on some of the tools that Listos California continues to build really, for community use and how we might be able to solicit your help as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Amy Palmer, part of the leadership team here at the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, to tell us more about our earthquake risks.
Great. Thank you, Sonia, and thank you, Sandy and Regina. How lucky I am to have an opportunity to work with the three of you who have done such tremendous work in recent decades, really, to help ensure government's doing a good job communicating with everyone in the state and not missing important groups. I took over as Director of Communications at CalOES earlier this year for Brian Ferguson, who is enjoying his opportunity to sleep after many, many years of disasters. But I know he was a tremendous supporter of this group and built a very good platform for emergency communications that I think can, and if we are continue the tradition well, will continue to save lives by getting critical information to people in the right ways with the right messengers in the moments when they need it most. Today, we're doing more of a seasonal readiness preparedness call with you. Obviously, there's been a lot in the news, fires, hurricanes, heat, but we don't want earthquakes to be lost here because as we approach a very important drill next week and the promotion of earthquake preparedness, we want to make sure the people of California have the correct information so they know how to act. So could you advance the slide? There I am. Thank you. And I'm here also, I will turn it over momentarily to Jose Lara, who is one of the pro communicators in our earthquake early warning branch, so seismic hazard branch. He'll have more to say in just a moment. Okay, next slide, please. Earthquake risk. I won't read you these slides, but of course, scientists stay very busy trying to assess the degree to which earthquakes can occur in our state. In the next 30 years, there's a better than even chance of a big one in the LA area, an even higher chance of a big one in the San Francisco Bay region. Earthquakes remain unpredictable. You may have seen the Los Angeles Times piece this morning. It really is hard, despite all of the scientific advances, for any scientist to reputably predict an earthquake. But we do know they can cause damage very suddenly. Next slide. Something special about this year's ShakeOut tour is that it will occur on the 35th anniversary of the Loma Prieta earthquake. The drill this year will take place at 10:17 a.m. on 10/17, which is next week. So we timed this briefing in the hope it would give you an opportunity to write about that. And we'll get to that a little bit more in a moment. But of course, some of you may have lived through Loma Prieta, a 6.9 magnitude earthquake south of San Francisco with many aftershocks. You may have lived through or seen some of the horrifying images of freeways collapsing and homes, banks of homes collapsing, 63 fatalities, and you can see the damage with the homes and businesses here as well. Next slide, please. This is 7 steps to earthquake safety, and some of the lessons we learned from the Loma Prieta earthquake. You can experience injury by falling furniture and objects. You can experience injury by falling in an earthquake, and obviously there are billions of dollars in damages. You can see that preparing can be about securing your space, having an emergency plan, minimizing your hardship after the fact by having important documents organized and in place. But it's really the next message that I want to focus on today. So next slide. We never want to take for granted that Californians know what to do when the shaking starts. And we've had a number of earthquakes this year in California where our system of statewide sensors are actually giving people a significant number of seconds before the shaking starts. This is quite new and quite exciting. And one of the reasons we feel it's more important than ever to emphasize preparedness by knowing what to do. It's the statewide sensors that pick up on early indications of an earthquake and that very speedily send messages to people's mobile phones. So the speed with which the information is getting from the sensors in the land to the mobile phones in people's hands is faster than ever before. And earlier this year, it was more than 20 seconds of warning for many people before the shaking of the earthquake started. So the message today is, given the extra seconds that people are now gaining to prepare for an earthquake by the alerts that they're getting on their phones, it's really important that they know what to do so that they drop, cover, and hold on because it can save their life. And let's see, go to the next slide, please. And before I turn it over to Jose to talk a little bit more about some of the CalOES activities next week, I would just encourage everyone. We saw Jeff Goldblum on a late night show talking about when the earthquake in LA hit, he shook and didn't know what to do. And Listos did some great content of people freezing when they had indications of an earthquake. The key for everyone in California is to make sure that you know the phrase, drop, cover, and hold on, so that you can take action when you get an alert on your phone or you feel the very first indications of shaking. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jose, and please share a little bit more about our Great ShakeOut tour.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amy. I'm Jose Lara with CalOES. I oversee the Seismic Hazards branch for the state, and I want to talk to you about this Great ShakeOut tour that CalOES is doing in precipitation of the Great California ShakeOut drill that will be happening on Thursday, October 17th at 10:17. Easy to remember, 10:17 at 10:17. And we will be hosting a statewide tour that will be stopping by 3 cities all throughout the state. We're going to be starting with San Diego, and we will be at the University of California, San Diego site. We want to bring the preparedness message to everybody, and this is a community in particular that needs that preparedness message as much as we can provide it, right? And so we want to make sure that all the students that are in attendance that may not be from what we would consider, prime or earthquake country, to still know how to best prepare for an earthquake. We also find that whenever we're able to reach the children, right, everybody's children, that we often see that parents often get prepared and are oftentimes very interested in preparing their children who may not be living within a 30-40 mile radius any longer. Our second stop on Tuesday, October 15th, will be in Los Angeles with Homeboy Industries. It's a great site. We're going to be able to get the preparedness message out to an underserved community and be able to readily talk to people one-on-one about what they can do to better prepare in a city that has a very high risk of seismic activity. We also want to really emphasize that throughout each one of these stops, we're actually going to be taking the earthquake simulator with us. And I have to tell you, this simulator does an excellent job of really providing you a real world experience of strong and forceful shaking. This simulator is able to simulate the intensity of a magnitude 7.0 earthquake, which really paints a picture and really, and no pun intended, really rocks your world in the respect that if you've never felt strong shaking, this simulator really will do a good job of making you realize why it is so important that you know what to do during strong shaking, which is drop, cover, and hold on. This simulator, in fact, we won't allow anybody to stand up in it while it's actually engaged, because we truly feel that there's going to be an injury if we were to allow that to happen. I have to tell you too, on a personal note, we've had a lot of people go through this simulator, and every single time, particularly in LA, where people have actually experienced a simulator, and immediately once they're out of it, it always comes back to, you know what, this felt exactly like Northridge. And it really brings home the experience to people and kind of re-engages that action item of it is best to prepare now for the eventuality of an earthquake in your location. On the third stop, we're going to be taking the simulator into Northern California to Sacramento, and it's going to be at the California State University, Sacramento. We once again want to really bring home that message to all of our students to be prepared for an earthquake wherever you may be. And oftentimes we see a lot of engagement with that population, not only interest in experiencing an earthquake with a simulator, because oftentimes our young people have not had the opportunity to experience very strong shaking. And I have to tell you, every single time, without a doubt, we know that once they experience the simulator, we know that they will take an extra step of actually asking, well, what's the best thing I could do to prepare today for an earthquake? And that really gives us a great opportunity to talk about that safety message, right? Secure your space, have a goat kit, make a plan, know what to do during shaking in your location. Next slide. So this whole CalOES tour is really an opportunity for us to bring the preparedness message, but also to drum up excitement about the great California ShakeOut drill that will happen October 17th at 10:17 a.m. And we want to take this opportunity to encourage all of California just to participate in this nationwide earthquake drill. Really, it's international now. Enough people do it throughout the world that it truly has become an international drill. But the Great ShakeOut truly is an opportunity for us to all practice what we need to do when strong shaking arrives. You've all seen the video of an earthquake occurring, and CCTV footage actually shows people kind of looking around like, wait a minute, is that an earthquake? What do I do? And they kind of freeze and they don't know exactly what the right thing to do. And that is exactly what we're trying to combat is, you need to take action upon feeling shaking or receiving earthquake early warning alerts. And that means truly drop, cover, hold on. We really encourage you to really practice that on your own, practice it with your family, but also practice it within your organization, within your newsrooms, within all types of settings, right? Because without this muscle memory, when shaking arrives at your location, you may not take that protective action that you need to stay safe during shaking. So going on with, well, how do I participate in the Great California ShakeOut if I'm not in one of these locations? Well, we ask people to go ahead and visit shakeout.org and register to participate in this drill. We have, I think, close to 9 million people that are already signed up, and we expect to actually increase by a few million in the next about 7 days. We want to get back to pre-COVID numbers, and we think that this is the year where we're going to be able to surpass our largest count. And really, even though it may be a number of 9 million people, that's 9 million souls that really will take the opportunity to practice this life safety skill. You know, it's just to put it into a little bit of perspective, something like over 50% of all injuries that occur during or during an earthquake or after an earthquake actually come from not securing your space, and people are trying to do things in the middle of shaking that they really shouldn't be trying to do. And we'll talk a little bit about that later, but that's why it's so important to drop, cover, and hold on. Take the opportunity on 10/17 at 10/17 to do exactly just that. Next slide. So let's talk about myth busting, right? And this is so important to our ethnic communities. You know, I myself was actually born and raised in Mexico, came here when I was 9 years old, and I was trained to get out of a building as soon as possible when shaking arrived in my area. And that has a lot to do with building codes, right? My particular region in Mexico did not have advanced building codes, and therefore there was a worry that there may be a collapse of a building. Well, that's not the case in California. Our building codes are rather advanced, and they are actually designed, most houses and buildings are designed to what's called life safety building code, which essentially means that we expect that most buildings you'll be able to survive with minimal injuries to any person. And that kind of gives us the ability to really change the guidance that we want to push out to all Californians. And that is why we want to talk about what you should not do during an earthquake, right? And that is really kind of taking previous guidance that people have heard over decades and decades and decades and try to change that to the latest and greatest research and the best and safest thing you can do today. And that is, first of all, as I kind of mentioned, modern building codes and constructions really kind of allows you to drop, cover, hold on wherever you're at. It is no longer the guidance that we ask you to stand beneath a doorway. That actual guidance comes from, it's actually very dated. We're talking about decades ago, we stopped asking people to do that. And that has to do with the fact that Adobe construction often had doorways that were particularly strengthened because of the arch. And that's where a lot of that guidance came from. But as most of us know, we don't live in Adobe houses anymore, right? Modern building code and construction has living in wood-based and or steel-based designed dwellings and or commercial buildings. And that is why it's so important to just get the message out to people. We want to drop, cover, hold on. We don't stand in doorways, right? And we want to encourage people to not run out of a building, right? Because we see that oftentimes most of the injuries that happen are from people that are attempting to do just that. So I know that I have a personal experience with that, and that's why I have actually trained my family, and who a lot of them are from Mexico, to do kind of the opposite of what they themselves have heard. And that is a key message that we want to push out there, is that the best thing to do here in California is drop, cover, and hold on. Next slide. Let's also talk about the future, right? We've talked about Loma Prieta. We've talked about what we can do to be better prepared today with yourself, your family. But let's talk about what California is doing to keep you safe. And of course, that is the California Earthquake Early Warning System, powered by Shake Alert. And this system is really the state's first in the nation earthquake early warning system that is designed to give you seconds of warning before shaking arrives. This could be all the way up to 20-30 seconds of warning, depending where you're at relative to the epicenter of an earthquake. This system was launched in 2019 by Governor Newsom and has become even more accurate and has increased its ability to deliver faster alerts with additional sensors coming online. And we have seen recent great successes in Southern California with the earthquakes that have occurred. I mean, we are up to tens of millions of alerts that we have been able to send out to Californians, really throughout the state, but particularly in the last month or two to Southern California. And that is also encompassing the MyShake app, which also is able to, which is the way that we are able to best deliver an earthquake early warning alert to everybody. We've seen millions of these alerts that have gone, throughout the state of California, and we want to make sure that everybody takes advantage of this. And the only way we can do that is really through you all. The last thing that I will mention briefly is that the California Earthquake Early Warning System is not just about delivering an alert to an individual, although that is one of our primary objectives, right? But it's so much more than that. The future is whereby no one has to download an app to receive an alert. The future is where it's fully integrated into all of our lives, whereby, at this point, everybody, if you're likely in a public commercial building, you see fire sprinklers that will turn on automatically when a fire turns on. That is exactly where the earthquake early warning system will go. There will become a time whereby if you're working at a factory and an earthquake occurs that will affect that factory, the assembly line will automatically turn off, whereby our turbines on our dams will immediately shut down to protect the infrastructure, whereby we're able to deliver an alert and maybe cut off traffic through a bridge, before shaking arrives. The future truly is bright for us, and that is where we're heading. The California Earthquake Early Warning System will be able to deliver automated actions to all. Next slide. Earthquake alerts. I can't tell you how important it is that we push a message of checking your settings and your notifications. Oftentimes we always hear, that this alert got sent out to people, but they didn't receive it. They didn't get critical, life safety information when they needed it the most. That could be anywhere from some sort of an emergency alert that came from your local government for an evacuation, all the way up to the earthquake early warning system. And that's why it is so vitally important that everybody turn on your wireless emergency alerts or your emergency alerts and notifications, depending what type of device you have. So I always encourage everybody that, every time we talk about someone not receiving a critical alert, that is the first place I always want to encourage people is check your settings. Make sure that not only your emergency alerts are enabled, but also if you have an Apple device, that you actually enable the local awareness button so that you are able to receive all types of alerts, including your earthquake early warning. If you do have a Android-based system, obviously the allow alerts button is the key one for all wireless emergency alerts. Last but not least, we encourage everybody in California to download the MyShake app, which is the first app in the nation that can deliver earthquake early warning, not just in California, but also Oregon and Washington. This is originally derived from California efforts through the California Office of Emergency Services, the Governor's Office of Emergency Services and the UC Berkeley Seismology Lab in a partnership. So we want to encourage everybody to download the MyShake app. It is free of charge and available in 6 languages, including Spanish, and really the top 6 languages in the state of California. I also always encourage people to check your settings in your MyShake app, even if you have it downloaded, to make sure that it has updated and that the app itself hasn't been offloaded. We've heard of people that downloaded the app 3 years ago, 4 years ago when we first rolled it out, but never touched it afterwards. And so their phone may have offloaded it due to the lack of activity. So settings and configurations are important, but if I would leave you with one thing is check those wireless emergency alerts on everybody's phone as it relates to really all emergency alerts. Next slide. I'll turn it back over.
Yay.
Thanks so much.
Thank
So,
you.
Mr. Lara, thank you so much. So I don't know right now, Sonia, if we want to end on your note, or if we want to open it up for question and answers before we come and turn it back over to you.
Yeah, I think I can get through this quickly, and then maybe we can leave the balance of time for Q&A. I see some good ones coming in already. Just as Amy and Jose mentioned, unlike other weather-driven scenarios, these aren't predictable, but technology is really giving us an opportunity here. And how do we really continue to reinforce this specific action that people can take in the moment, and really trying to cement that into their sort of practice and preparation, so that it really comes top of mind quickly. There are a couple other things that we've seen, in some of the work that we've been doing, directly with many of you in community organizations, is myths on best practices, which we also kind of want to address. And then last but not least, Californians continue to be ready for disasters, but need a little bit more help on where and how to start, which is where you all come in. And in some of the recent conversations we've been having with Californians, there's also a little bit of myth that it takes a little bit longer and actually more money than we certainly thought or expected to get prepared. And so, a lot of the resources that we're talking about that Jose just went through are all free and take moments to get connected to. So really appreciate that. On the next slide, just very high level, we have really taken a seasonal approach. I think leveraging this opportunity with the Loma Prieta anniversary and really honoring obviously those that we lost, and really, again, how far we've come to really have these seconds that will save lives. We really wanted to have a direct sort of package of content that really stays focused on those free alerts and these 3 key actions. Next slide. So building on that seasonal strategy, we've got all kinds of new resources that are out and about on listoscalifornia.org. In our resource hub, over the course of the last several briefings we've been able to have with you, whether that's Listos or on wildfire preparedness or a lot of our summer content, these particular social media toolkits on SPK. It's a really easy to use system. You can just go on and pull down whatever you want and pull it directly into your social media channels. We've had thousands of people join as users to take and share our Listos content and invite you to do the same. We've also seen really great uptake during our rapid response moments in the summer, when we did have some of those heat events come through. Having you all by our side, in those rapid response sort of content sharing moments has been incredible. We've seen, again, thousands also join us in those moments. On the next slide, you'll see here just some ideas on how you can help. In addition to this briefing, we're also talking to community-based organizations. As you know, we've got, dozens of them in different areas of California, over 70 as part of our network, and really trying to encourage them to join us. As Jose mentioned, we're almost at that 10 million mark, and we certainly want to get well past it on those that are committing to practicing on October 17th. So whether that's sharing some top tips and using our resources, or even as you all might be doing some of your work, taking a moment to pause on the 17th at 10:17 to just say, hey, how much do you know about earthquake preparedness? Do you know? Quick tip on drop, cover, and hold to, again, just really cement those 3 actions that are going to keep people safe. Just a couple other quick items. In case you missed it, on the next slide here, we also just, Listos California, wrapped up an incredible Tour de California, if I can call it, 9 different cities across 8 weeks, where we brought together 700 leaders from the emergency management space, FACE leaders, promotoras, so many. And we've really focused on sort of surveying them And the majority of them, 98%, say that they would come to something like this again. So super appreciative of the investment that the Governor's Office of Emergency Services is really making to create these new connections and share resources across regions, again, to make sure that we can complement any moment that we might see in emergency management for that long-term sustainability and resilience of our communities. 2 more slides here for you on just Listos California resources. This next one, we held a convening of the first of its kind with another state agency, the Office of Community Partnerships and Strategic Communication. Many of you also know their work. And in that, we took a lot of feedback from community groups on how we could continue to improve one of our core resources. This disaster ready guide, well over 600,000 have already been distributed this year by that network of community-based organizations. It's one of our sort of anchor tools, and invite you to take our refreshed version that adds those extreme heat tips. Again, seeing those events, we really wanted to make sure those quick tips were in there. Wildfire smoke, which we're also seeing simultaneous to. Extreme heat, and of course, as we head into January, wanting to make sure that folks are also prepared for severe storms, you know, with those wild swings that we've been seeing in weather. And last but not least, it's a little bit easier to print. We've kind of shortened it because we hear, you know, that's helpful for folks as well. And last but not least, Listos California. On the next slide, all of the resources that we have. Again, going back to free alerts, we've got an incredible resource on our website where you can type in your zip code. While we do rely on some locals to tell us when their alert systems might be changing, we've also got a really great quality control process in place to make sure that we're checking, you know, what local alert systems are, because in addition to the earthquake-specific ones, we also have a network of every county having its own emergency alert system. So wanting to make sure that people are plugged into that, social media toolkits, other types of resources that community organizations or as you're out doing events can be using. And last comment here, we've been getting lots of questions about how can we bring kids and youth into this conversation. And so, you know, while we're having, you know, some of that, you know, really great engagement at a mercado, perhaps, you know, talking to, you know, a mother about, you know, how she can be earthquake ready. You know, we want to keep that kid a little busy, maybe for an extra 60 seconds so that, you know, that mom can ask that question and our kids can have fun too. So listoscalifornia.org/resources. We know you know where it's at, but want to make sure that we're always giving you these good reminders because there's incredible evergreen resources and, you know, 14+ languages, Indigenous videos, so much. So we welcome and invite you to take part and help us keep Californians safer. So Regina, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Sonia. I want to open this up because I know that there's questions that people have, and just leave the remaining balance of the time for questions and then give back time to anybody's day that may need it. But let's see, there's quite a few questions that have been coming up. So I'm just going to go from the bottom and come up. This is from Pamela with Immigrant Magazine. Pamela asks, what is the home base in the MyShake app used for?
Absolutely. So the home base feature is actually a fairly recent feature that we added to the MyShake app. It allows you to select essentially like a zip code area, 10 by 10 kilometer area of where you want to be alerted. So that way you don't have to necessarily share your location services, or I'm sorry, your location at all times with the MyShake app. We did this because we heard some concern of people that did not want to drain their battery and or for privacy reasons. We do want to remind everybody that we never save any locations and or we are also we only get a sampling of where you're at once every approximately 10 minutes. And so either way, the home base feature allows you to just select a 10 by 10 kilometer area where you want to be located. And then if an event were to occur that affects that specific area, we would still be able to deliver an alert if you chose not to share your location with the MyShake app at all times. Of course, we do always want to encourage people to share their locations, because if you are not there at that location, you may not, get an alert, right? Say, for example, I live in San Francisco, but I'm traveling out in LA, and your home base is San Francisco, you will not receive an alert if you do not share your location at all times. I do also want to add a tip that we've seen a lot of people that utilize the home base feature to actually select a location where family may be at. So say, for example, I live in Sacramento, but I have a lot of family in LA. I actually set up my home base for LA so I could be notified of an earthquake if it were to occur in a location where, my grandma may be, or where my son may be going to college, and so on.
Great. Thanks for that. Next question is, what do you do if you're driving on the freeway and even going over the bridge? When I heard someone talk about the North Ridge, I remember being young and it was MLK Day. And so people weren't on the road, but what happens in the event that happens?
Absolutely. So if you do find yourself driving at any point and you get an alert, the best thing to do is to safely pull over to the side of the road and ride out the shaking being pulled over. So pull over, park your car, and ride the actual shaking out until you really see that the shaking has stopped. That's the best thing we can do. It's hard to provide to opine on, if you're in a bridge, right? I would certainly, it's a very tough call, right? If I was about to be, I can tell you what Jose will do. Jose, if I was about to exit the bridge, I'd exit the bridge, but if I'm, in a position where, there's strong shaking occurring, I want to stop my car, and so it really is dependent on the situation. I can tell you that there's great design work that has gone into bridges and our infrastructure, and so we do expect them to be very resilient to earthquakes and shaking.
I'd like to add something to that. Thank you, Jose. That's exactly right. But I believe it's important to educate drivers and particularly following the big LA earthquake that shook so many regions of LA and the one in Malibu. It's really important to use caution following an earthquake when you're on the road. There was a massive boulder in the middle of the Grapevine after the initial earthquake that could absolutely have taken someone's life, whether it hit them or they hit it. In Malibu, we were sending public messaging to be very careful about debris falling onto roadways, and we saw that in Malibu as well. So I think a general message, you could help us by encouraging your readers to be cautious on roadways, especially in mountainous areas where the land can come loose and slide into the middle of the road.
Well, that leads me to another question from Rosanna, where she asked, where can Californians get an earthquake helmet to save lives? Is there such a thing?
You know what? I do not know of an earthquake helmet, but I would actually tell you that if you were to receive an alert and had enough time to actually put something on, by that time you're already in the middle of an earthquake anyway. So I would encourage everybody to just keep in mind that this has been greatly studied, that the safest thing one can do during an earthquake is, upon feeling shaking and receiving an alert, to drop, cover, hold on wherever you may be.
So this question is from Henrietta Burrows. People can suffer heart attacks and other physical effects during an actual earthquake. Considering how realistic the simulator is, have you had anyone to suffer physical consequences from it? And what precautions do you have to prepare for such effects when you expose people to it?
Yeah, so we've never had anything of that sort. We do have an actual racing seat inside the simulator, and it has very strong grab handles, and we can actually throttle the level of force that is utilized on the simulator. So it's quite safe. I want to assure everybody it's quite safe. We've never had any injuries or anything like that, and we actually allow children to ride it because it is quite safe.
And then we know that you talked about some myths, like the getting under the door. Are there other myths that, sorry, I'm just trying to read this. Are there other myths that people should, that you want to dispel?
Don't run outside. One of the natural human instincts, which I did in Loma Prieta when I was in Berkeley, when that earthquake hit, is I heard glasses shaking in a restaurant and I bolted straight out of there. And I think that is the human instinct to get out from a building that you may think is collapsing, but the scientists would say, don't run outside, stay where you are, drop cover and hold on. So that's a myth.
So the job cover and roll is on fires, right? That's where I kept thinking like, wait, why are we not saying roll? But it's
Stop,
hold
drop, and
on.
roll. Not stop, drop, and roll. Drop, cover, and hold on.
Let's see here. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so this is, I think I've kind of answered. If anybody else has any questions, and if you want to unmute yourself, you can. I think it's such a quaint group today. If I didn't catch any of the other questions, please, if you have a burning question and you want to answer it, ask it, please. Please advise when the ground is cracking, what to do. This is from Rosanna.
You know what? It would be, although it's highly unlikely that you may be actually, in an area where there's an actual rupture. I honestly could not advise with that, because it's very rare that you would actually be right on top of a fault that is actually rupturing. Either way, usually if it ruptures, you'd be on one side or the other side. So likely the safest thing you could probably do is still drop cover and hold on.
All right. And then this question is, what other help info does the app give after an earthquake? So do they give any other information, vital information that people would need?
That's a great question. I can't believe I missed that. The MyShake app does deliver earthquake early warning alert, but it's also a great preparedness app. And it gives you things that you can do for multiple hazards, for earthquakes and tsunamis. So you can actually refer to it for a variety of resources. Not only that, it actually gives you the ability to be a citizen scientist. So we do have 3 sections in the safety tab. One of how to best prepare, one for how to survive an earthquake, and of course, how to best recover after an earthquake has occurred. We also have the log section, which actually logs all of our alerts and major earthquakes that have happened really around the world. And you can actually play with what earthquakes you want to hear about that are more informational in nature, within your own personal app. I always do encourage people, explore it. Tons of great resources for preparedness there.
Great. And obviously we know that earthquakes are not just about shaking, obviously other things, water mains could burst or fires could start. Is there some type of correlation with, and I got this as a message, so if there's an app for the wildfires?
I can answer that. I would say generally, as the weather continues to change and we are facing more and varied disasters in California and across the nation, one of the bright spots is alerts that you can get on your cell phone to keep you safe. And one of the best things to do is go to your county and sign up for alerts. In the county in which you live, you can get region-specific information. Of course, CalOES, in the event of a major earthquake, a major fire, CalOES is also sending messaging to large numbers of Californians with guidance on what to do in the wake of an emergency. CAL FIRE has a homepage that has real-time information about wildfires that is brand new and has been an extremely successful website. So I think that while the number of natural disasters seems to be increasing with the changes in weather, the bright spot are the alerts, the information you can get on your phone. For earthquakes, it's a game changer because you can have seconds that can save your life. For fires, you can get evacuation information that's very specific to where you live. So taking a few minutes to sign up for alerts from your local county, as well as making sure the settings on your phone allow emergency alerts and government alerts, can make a real difference for you and for your loved ones to survive these disasters.
Great. So, so that we can give people some time back in their day, you guys will be able to tell again, where they can find the information on Listos. Let me say that right. And if each one of you can just give us a headline of what you would want folks, what do you want the reporters and media to know, and how would you write your headline of this briefing? If you were a reporter.
I would say earthquake warnings are getting better. Be prepared and know what to do.
Great. Jose?
You know what? I would, I'm obviously not a journalist, so you have to excuse me for my probably poor job of doing so, but I would say that the key message for us is take action now to prepare for the next earthquake.
Great. Sonya, we'll end on your note.
Oh my goodness. Well, I feel like I'm going to have to just defer to the journalists of the three of us and go with a second on Amy's. I think that emphasis on, how the system is really getting better and it is perfect.
Well, great. Well, one, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. We will be following up with the recording of this briefing along with bios for each one of the speakers, and you'll be able to talk back with Jessica Martin at EMS if you have any further questions or need to talk to the speakers further. I'm going to give you guys back 7 minutes of your day, and I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you so much.